welcome back to another soul nourishing episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host Avik, and today you are in for something extraordinary. We often talk about the longevity, resilience, uh, purpose on this podcast, and but what if if you could live that inspiration, not just imagine it. What if you could look 91 years young in the mirror and still be writing, contributing, and shaking up the world literally? Well, that's exactly what our guest today is doing. Jim Paulk, welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Yeah. And dear listeners, you won't believe when I say who he is. I mean, one of my favorite, I'll say, uh, I'm very curious. Definitely, we'll get into it. So, I'll quickly love to introduce Jim with all of you, dear listeners. So, Jim is a 91-year young, I won't say old, it's young, submariner, Naval Academy graduate, business leader, conversationist, and now an author. So his latest book, Shaking Up the World, captures the fascinating, heartfelt, and at times humorous stories of the lives of his classmates, sharing not just history, but humanity. So, from commanding submarines beneath the sea to leading conversation reform, he has spent his life in service not just to his country, but to his community, the oceans, and now to the readers and the listeners like us. So, you can imagine the conversation, how it can go on. So, let's dive in. This isn't just about aging well, it's all about living fully at every stage. So, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Lovely, lovely. So, Jim, like it's such an honor to have you here, and uh, you have had a career that spans oceans, eras, and now the chapters. Literally, at 91, what keeps your mind sharp and your spirit motivated to keep creating?
It's people. I think the most exciting thing about doing this book was getting to know my classmates better and and learning things about them that I did not know that was so fascinating. And that's why that I named this book Shaking Up the World, because some of my classmates literally shook up the world. If I told you that I had a classmate that was responsible for us having the GPS system, would you believe that?
Yeah.
That's monumental. Brad Parkinson is the person that's the architect of the GPS that we use all over the world, and we take it for granted now. But that was done by a friend and a classmate.
When I'm just literally thinking right now, with whom I'm talking. Yeah. So I mean, like, uh, I really I want to mention about the GPA. So, uh, from there, I just wanted to ask, like, is there a routine or maybe a mindset or maybe uh, a belief system that you have carried with you since your days in the Navy uh, that continues to guide you now?
Well, yes. First of all, I'm an extremely positive person, and I think to get through life and have a happy life, you need to be positive, and you need to find a way to keep your mind in a positive way. Because if it gets filled up with negative things, then you're going to be miserable. So you want to think positive, and I think so positive, and that's why I did this book. And it's the first book of this nature in the history of the Naval Academy since 1845. Other books are a single person wrote the book about their stories, but my book has 81 stories by 59 authors. So this is not just my book, it's really a book of others. And yeah, I have some stories in the book, but most of them about other people. And that's the
Mm,
thing that makes it so unique. And I think to do this book, I had to have a positive mind and a positive mindset in order to do the book. And I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. And it's a way for it's a legacy for my classmates to have this book and have these stories to pass on. One of the editors of our book
mm,
said that it was history at mind level because so many of the stories reflect history of the second half of the 20th century. Going back, and I can mention some stories. If I had a classmate that was a survivor of Auschwitz, a Nazi death camp in World War II. His family were Jewish and they were put in a boxcar and sent from
mm,
eastern Poland to western Poland. And when they got off the boxcars, the wind was blowing in their direction and they could smell the burning flesh from the ovens and they knew their lives were going to be short. Well,
mm,
Art later found out that his mother and his sister were executed immediately, and his father went to a different place than him, and they didn't get back together for 2 years after the Second World War. But that's pretty unusual to have a
mm.
classmate that was a survivor of Auschwitz. I had another classmate that was a survivor of being captured by the Japanese during World War II. So we had both directions of the war. So I don't know whether that's relevant or of interest or not, but I just mentioned those two things.
No, no, definitely. It's definitely relevant. And um, thank you so much for sharing that. And trust me, I really love to listen to a lot of stories because I really love story because stories are not a story. It's a life lessons, I would say, uh, to learn from, to learn from those stories. So definitely thank you so much for sharing that. And like I was mentioning, uh, 91 years young. So this thing is coming to my mind. I mean, like literally saying, I mean, you have seen the generations, right? Like, what you think? I mean, what you uh can say to our listeners, to me, to anyone who is listening, like what you have seen, what you are seeing, and what is there in the future. What do you have to say?
Well, I'm probably not very good philosopher. I'm more of an engineer type, but I believe that the future is bright for this world. I think uh, we tend to go in one direction too far, and then we get pulled back in the other direction. And I think sometimes the world gets going in the wrong way, but eventually we get straightened out and go in the right way. And I think you have to be positive about that. We've been around for a long, long time, and sometimes I get asked about wars and why we have wars, and I say, well, if you think back to when we were children, if another little boy had something you wanted and they wouldn't let you use it, then maybe you'd fight over it. So I don't know. We learn to be aggressive sometimes when we're young, and when we're older, it results in war. But eventually it gets settled, and humanity goes on. We progresses, and I'm very optimistic about the future. I think you look at all the things. I'll mention another classmate. Charlie Duke was a classmate that was an astronaut. He was Apollo 16, and he spent 3 days on the moon. And I called Charlie and I said, Charlie, would you write your story? And he said, I would prefer that you interview me and you write it. And I say, well, okay. So I got my 30-year-old granddaughter to come join me. And so we interviewed Charlie. We both took a set of notes. And when I got those notes, I put it together, and that was his story, and sent it back to him and let him review it and make changes. But the exciting thing for me was to be able to do that with my granddaughters and Charlie. So there was three of us to put that story together. But Charlie was one of the last guys on the moon, and now we're various companies, countries are trying to send someone back to the moon. But Charlie is the youngest person that was ever there, and he left an American flag on the moon. And there's a photo in the book of him saluting the flag with the moon lander in the background. So the book has 71 photos in it, so to kind of enhance the stories in the book. I thought I'd mention that.
Wow. Oh, what a lovely thing to know, definitely. And so when you were discussing, I mean, when he was sharing his story, so what is the first thing you have asked him?
The first thing I asked him,
Yeah.
I said, "What was it like to lift off Earth?" And he said that when they got up high, he could look back, he could see some fires burning in
Mhm.
Africa. He could see the stars was, and he could see the blue Earth was the Earth was so blue and it was so beautiful
Mhm.
that was his observation of Earth, and he said he just couldn't believe how beautiful it was, and looking at it from out in space that it stands out among everything that he saw.
Wow, lovely. Wow. So I mean, your book "Shaking Up the World" is definitely. I mean, I really love this title, and uh, Uh, were there any stories that, I mean, like you mentioned, I mean, about your classmates? Uh, so first thing I definitely asked you, like, what do your classmates mean to you today?
What do they what?
Mean to you today?
I'm not sure I understand. I'm
Yeah, I'm
sorry.
saying, yeah, your classmates. You mentioned about their stories and
Oh,
about, yeah.
they really like the book, and they are enthusiastic about it, and it's getting mentioned. The history department is very enthusiastic about the book. I will tell you the story when we had the book signing. I had a lady that lived in Florida, and we were in Georgia, and she called and wanted to know if she could bring the book up and have me sign it. And I said
Mm,
I would be delighted to do that. And
mm,
when she finally sat down and I signed the book, she
mm.
said, "I want you to dedicate this to my son."
Okay.
And as we talked, I found out that her son was going to Annapolis the next week and start off his naval career. And that was so heartfelt by me. It was so exciting to be able to do that. And I've had lots of opportunities to talk to groups, and I've been asked to be speakers at different functions, and I've enjoyed doing that, and my classmates are thoroughly behind the book and excited about the book and promoting the book all the way that they can. And I've had the alumni association
Mm,
has done some special events for our book, and it's just everyone has welcomed it because it's so different and so unusual. I mean, it's not unusual for sailors to write books about sea stories. And there are certainly some stories in the book that can be classified as sea stories. But
mm,
in order for a story to get in this book, it had to be special in some way, and had to have a twist to it so that it wasn't something routine. It was something that was very different. We had a classmate that was a hydronaut that went down 11,000 feet in the ocean out and near the Canary Islands to look at
okay.
to examine the debris field of the Scorpion submarine that was down.
Oh, OMG. So, wow. So, I mean, when you first started being into the submarines, um, w- I mean, was there any imagination you had before moving into the submarine, or what was your feeling? I mean, first time feeling. So, uh, would love to know. I mean, if you can share.
I enjoyed the submarine service. It's the special is people. It's always about people, and the
Yeah.
people that you work with, and the people you trust, and the
Mm.
people that you depend on. Your lives are dependent upon one another, and
Yeah.
to be qualified in submarines and have the uh,
Mm.
dolphin insignia is so special, and almost everyone on board has wears them because they're qualified in almost every position on the boat, because you have to be able to help one another. But to just I can tell you this, that people I served with in the 60s I'm still in contact with today, and though I was an officer, I'm in contact with enlisted men, and I don't know how many enlisted men want to talk to an officer, but we are talking to one another on a regular basis. So that's the thing to me that's most exciting about the submarine stories. Now there are stories in the book about submarines, and I think your listeners would enjoy reading it. The book. Let me just say this about the book. First of all, the book is entertaining. You would enjoy reading it because you would like what you're reading. The second thing is educational because it does have history. And as I mentioned, it's history at eye level. So you're getting history of the second half of the 20th century. And the third thing is you're going to find it's inspirational. And I think that that's a key thing that you read this book, you're going to be inspired. Because here's a group of people that started out with 1,160 in June of 1953, graduated 848, and now there are about 250 of us that are still alive. But the things that they did in life is the thing that would inspire you, because look at all the things they did. We had one that was a fish farmer in the Philippines. He went over there, and I think your audience would be interested in that. He went over there is in a corporation, and he
Mm.
moved into a neighborhood with the Filipinos. He learned how to speak the language, and he started helping them with some of their activities. He ended up
Oh.
leaving corporation and going into fish farming with them. And he had an absolute ball doing that. But that's
Okay.
unusual. And we had a classmate that did that was a editor and publisher of a newspaper on the island of Molokai in the Hawaiian Islands. So you look at all these different things, that some of the things that I've mentioned, and you would never imagine in a lifetime that you were going to do those things, but life is evolutionary, and
Mm.
you just don't know where it's going to lead. But you just go in different directions, and hopefully you're going to be successful in all of them. And I think the stories in the book is an inspirational, because you look at all the different things that these
Mm.
people were involved in, its events and accomplishments. I will tell you one story.
Okay.
We had a young man that was an assistant janitor at a bank in Chicago, and he had no future. He was from a very poor neighborhood. There's no way he was going to college because their family couldn't afford it. But the
Mm.
bankers took a liking to him and got him an appointment to Annapolis. And he went to the Naval Academy, became a submariner, and advanced to the rank of four-star admiral. He was one of the top admirals in the Navy, and that was Bruce DeMars. And I will tell you this with Bruce.
Mhm.
When I got the stories done, I sent them to the person if they were still alive and asked them to review it. I didn't get a reply from Bruce, and I kept sending him a note. Bruce, have you had a chance to read it yet? Well, eventually I got a telephone call from his son, and he said, Dad hasn't been doing very well lately. He said, but I read the story to him, and he looked up at me from the bed and he said, I want to buy that book. And so we knew that he liked the story, and end up Bruce died a couple of weeks after that. But I just want to mention that's like a fairy tale for someone that has no future to go as far in life as he did, and it just is so exciting. And to me, it's inspirational because here's somebody that had nothing that reached the top.
Okay. Okay. Wow. And also, if you talk about the health, like you are not just active, you're sharp, present, vibrant. So, how do you take care of your physical and mental health at this age?
The mental health of what
Uh, Physical and mental health of yours at this age.
at this stage
Yeah.
I'm inspired by this book, and I mean, I could have just written the book and forgotten about it, but I'm doing radio broadcast, I'm speaking, I'm doing everything I can to promote it, and I'm
Mm,
doing this for my classmates, and that's what inspires me is them. And so I have like I said, I'm a very positive person, and
mm,
I'm really into this writing thing, and I will tell you that at one stage in my life, I was a very poor writer. I didn't think I could write anything, but I kind of it's an evolutionary thing with me that I got into writing, and now I've just embraced it, and I'm working on the book, and I'm working on the podcast, and I'm doing everything I can, and I'm enjoying life. At this stage. I'm a little bit handicapped, but mentally, I'm still at about 12 years old. How about that?
great. So, um, I mean, what message would you want to pass to your younger generations, like especially those feeling lost in today's fast-moving world?
Well, I think there is a fast moving world. It's technical, and some of us we don't keep up, and we're not very technically competent. But we try, and we're trying the best we can to keep up with this world. But I don't know how kids embrace everything and learn everything that they can because there's so much information and so much data, and I don't know whether this artificial intelligence thing is going to overtake us or not. But we need something to help us because there's just too much for our brains, don't you think?
Exactly. I totally agree. I totally agree on this. And I mean, if I ask you like, what's the one most important lesson time has taught you?
Well, time, I think it's taught me to learn to first of all uh, to deal with problems and fix them. Don't sit back and worry. Some people have a tendency to do nothing and just worry. But my advice is get with it and be active and fix the problems and find a solution rather than sit around and worry about it. But get with the problem and deal with it. And if you can deal with problems, then you can put them behind you and get on with the next thing. But just don't sit around and worry about something. Do something about it.
Exactly, exactly, I agree. And is there one story from your book or life that embodies that wisdom? I mean, what would it be?
Well, let's see. There probably a lot of them in there that would embrace that. I think
Hmm.
there's one story in the book that I think would make a great movie, and there are probably 4 or 5 stories that are going to make a great movie. But the one that I'll mention is Walt Mukow. His father was worked in the embassy
Mm.
in Shanghai, China,
Okay.
and he was retired. chief quartermaster from the U.S. Navy, but worked there in the embassy. When the Japanese invaded northern China and the bombs started coming down on Shanghai, then they moved the family out of there and went to the Philippines. But when they got to the Philippines, the Japanese were soon there. And the house they were in was hit by a bomb, and then they lost everything. And the American soldiers surrendered there to the Japanese, and they were told that they should go and surrender too. So they surrendered, and they were put into internee camp, which is a civilian term for prisoners of war, but it's internees. And so they spent the war as an internee. And then at the near the end of the war, paratroopers came in and rescued them and got them behind the American lines. And that whole story is just so remarkable. He was
Mm.
13 years when he got out, and he weighed like 62 pounds. They'd almost starving to death there, but times were very tough. And I think
Yes.
that's a remarkable story because he went to the Naval Academy and graduated and served his time in the Navy, and he's still alive and still doing well. But that's quite a story.
Wow. That's quite amazing, I have to say. That's quite amazing. Wow. So, Jim, thank you so much for reminding us that human spirit doesn't fade, it deepens, and that purpose doesn't retire, it evolves. So, that telling our stories may be one of the most powerful things we can do for ourselves and for those who come after. So, um, to every listener out there, let Jim's life be your permission slip to dream bigger, live fuller, and never underestimate the chapters still unwritten. Because whether you are at 21 or 91, you can still shake up the world. So, uh, Jim, if someone wants to connect with you, what would be the best medium?
Well, I'm at you can look up James D. Paul Jr. author, and you'll get my Facebook page, and you can get me up on Facebook, or you can just find me at Jim Paulk. I have that's another page I have on Facebook, so you can get me there, and I would love to communicate with you. So please contact me. I would enjoy really getting to know other people.
Lovely. That's really amazing. And um, the listeners, I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, this is your host, Avik, signing off from Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. Stay active, stay curious, and keep turning your own pages. So, thank you so much.